Hello, everyone. I'm sitting here with Ron Goldberg, and we're trying to fix a problem we had with our meeting in Google in my computer. The sound didn't come up good, so we wanted to do this again. Not the same, but just touch a couple topics. And so basically, the meeting was about two things. The electrical universe, which is a radically new way of thinking about the universe and how the sun and the stars and everything work. And the second topic we're going to talk about is about inventions. So Ron wants to talk about how is it that you come up with an idea and how do you develop it, and we're going to exchange ideas on how, in my point of view and his point of view, is going to work. So the first topic is something I really, really like is the electric universe. So basically, that group believes that, from history, some physicians, Einstein and many others, talked about that what's holding the universe and everything in place is gravity, right? So basically, the new group is what they're saying is gravity is not as strong enough to hold galaxies in place because of the distance, right? I mean, close, yeah, gravity works, but long distances, there's a big question mark.
Even with a large black hole in the center of a galaxy, it's still not strong enough to be able to hold it all together. Just that's not enough.
Right. So I posted a link and some videos about this topic, and basically what some team was able to do, which was very interesting, is that they and they're based in Canada, and I always forget the name of the team, but they created a chamber and they put some plasma gas in there, and they put electric current to see what would happen. And with all the info about the sun and what they have studied the sun, they discovered that the same numbers and the same behavior was replicated on that chamber. So basically, they created a mini sun, and it was auto-organizing. So everything just organized in layers, and so that's pretty neat. They didn't mention if there are other groups that have tested the same thing. I mean, this is a big endeavor, so more testing has to happen. And the other thing that we hear is that pseudoscience plus time equals science. So many theories, they just need time to be tested and proven that they are correct. So that's the case for the electrical universe and the mini sun that they created. So that's with that. So now we're going to move into inventions. So Ron is telling me that one of his passions is, he's an attorney, but one of his passions is to invent things, right? So basically, my way of thinking, I get ideas and I see ideas and I think of ideas all the time about inventing things. but I'm a systems engineer. So basically, I know a little bit of what you need to make it happen, right? So so we were just talking about the ring bell or the doorbell that is with the camera. So so in electronics, you just have to think about how it's going to work first before actually coming up with how it's going to look, right? You want to make sure it works, and then you want to make sure how it's going to look.
Right.
So so in the meeting on Sunday, I was talking about the. I mean, basically, it has come. That's the coffee maker.
Oh,
shut up. So so in my view, you need basically a way to create a mini model of whatever it is that you want to create, right?
Right.
So you need a 3D printer that I'm sure they're less expensive than it was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know about the software that controls that printer on how to create things, and you need an attorney to file the patent. Yeah. So we were talking about two things. So one thing is to create a new thing, and another thing is to enhance something that has been already created,
Mm-hmm.
which is a tricky proposition because the patent holders are very jealous about their stuff.
Right.
So coming up with radical new ways of doing something and telling them, look, I have a new way to do your patented product. They're not going to like it. So it's going to be like a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole interesting area of patent law, and when something is close enough to violate a patent,
Yeah.
Or whether or not it's not close enough, and there's a lot of litigation over that that can tie people up for a long time,
Right.
And resources and time, money. So yeah.
Right. So, but it's very interesting, and I promote that you create inventions that do not touch certain things that are not recommended for you to invent, like 0-point energy, anti-gravity, and there's a third that I always forget, because those are very sensible, touchy aspects. If you come up with that idea, the best way to, I would say, do not patent it, because the government can recall that patent, so nobody can see it.
Right.
And you just publish it on the web and make it available to anyone in the world.
It's funny because I don't think that if you remember the orange juice plastic container, the carton containers where you had to open it up and fold it, and it was really annoying to do that, and it didn't always work sometimes. And then someone thought about, why don't we just put a screw cap on that, right? I don't think the military would care too much about that invention. No. It's not sort of intruding or providing a strategic advantage to get screw taps and that type of thing. So that would be an example of. So there's plenty of things to invent that wouldn't cross over into that area.
Oh yeah, and the thing you have to remember is that once you create something, then you need the investors to come and help. So because if you want to make sure that you are the first to apply for patent and you are in patent pending status, many people, they just go ahead with producing whatever they invented,
right,
with the patent pen, and making sure that there's nothing in the queue
Right.
in front of you.
In front of you. First in line is first in time.
Line, yeah.
You're right.
So
right. One thing though, I just would add is that in addition to not wanting to intrude with certain areas like the military aspects of things, there are other patents that can be difficult too. Like there's that well-known story of the individual who patented the windshield wiper delay system that you see in cars. And when he did that, he had to fight. It got into a huge fight in the automobile industry, which didn't recognize his patent and basically said, we're not going to recognize this or pay you for this. And, he had to go to court, federal court. He went into bankruptcy. I think he got a divorce from his wife. He went through sheer hell for a number of years. He won eventually, but had to pay a pretty big price for that. So some patents some areas are more difficult, especially like for him, he had to deal with the entire automobile industry, and that was a very difficult thing. One of the ideas that I had thought about many years ago was in the automobile industry. And what it was something called I called it a severe braking alert system. This is many years ago before we have like the kind of sophistication we have with Tesla and other cars and motion detectors and things like that. And the idea was that it was very simple, was that, brake lights come on to let you know, the person behind, that the car is slowing down. However, rear-end collisions still happen quite frequently. One of the things that the brake light doesn't tell you when it comes on is that what happens if the person how hard is being braked. So what if someone severely braked? So that means that if, let's say you designed a sensor in the brake so that like a white pulse, in addition to like the kind of things that you see at traffic lights sometimes to warn you that like be careful, stop. If a white pulse came out of the car instead of just a red brake lights, in addition to that you had like a white pulse, it would tell the car behind like, oh, this person's severely braking. I better brake harder than I normally would. And maybe that would prevent
But I
collisions.
have one better there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the person behind, it's the other car behind.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So basically, I've thought about it many, many times as well. And the brakes should, and some cars do, but I think it's a personal thing you put in the car. Not the manufacturers are doing that. But if you press hard, it will pulse.
Right.
Big time.
Right.
But the thing is that you have three cars. So the car here,
The third car, the one in the back,
is the one that is not seeing
anything.
anything.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So all cars should have a stoplight from side to side in the top of the rear glass. Like the Tesla Model S is the only car that I've seen that has the stoplight so that it can be seen from the car, not behind, but the one next to the one behind.
So it broadcasts it so that more than just the car behind can see it.
Right.
So it's sort of it's like a big signal to like a whole area.
Right.
Like this car is braking severe, like
it's hard
brake.
Yeah.
But you think about it, and that's like for me, that's like the beauty of why I like invention so much, because you think of this, you see this problem, and you think, is there a solution to this problem, or is there something that can make it better? If you, for example, can do something that can reduce accidents, and it really has an effect on doing that, then that's a great
And I have
solution.
One better. That if you severely brake, right, not only the stop light comes up, but the whole glass lights up.
Mm-hmm. Like a beacon.
Like the whole glass has light that can be seen by multiple cars behind.
Right. Now, of course, everyone will need to learn that system.
Yeah.
But that's important. Everyone knows stop lights. They know brake lights. They know that's what you learn as you're a driver. If someone comes up with some new technology that does something different, people will be like, hey, look at that. It's like a light that's going on in that car. I wonder what that's all about. So obviously it would have to be something that would be communicated so people know.
Right.
Because then, of course, then people know, then they can observe,
right.
the rules. So it's things like that. That's like, for me, like thinking about things like that, like it's funny because so many, obviously, how many years, thousands of years ago, or how long it's been, someone came up with the wheel. A wheel is a great concept. It's very easy to move stuff on wheels. And yet, how long did it take before they realized, like with suitcases, that maybe suitcases should have wheels, and maybe they should design like something to come up, it was like it seems so obvious, but yet it took a while for it to be invented.
I mean, it happens in the worst cases. And the worst case is the automobile manufacturers. Why it takes 100 years to have seatbelts? How many years we had no seatbelts?
Right.
How many years? It started with electrical cars.
Right. Which they killed.
Right. Of course, because it was not a business.
Right.
But all these innovations were super slow.
Right. Surprising,
super
right?
Slow.
Right.
Yeah, very surprising. Are they not testing the thing that they're creating? Because I'm amazed about the seatbelt.
It's surprising. You would think that companies would want to promote the safety. Like a lot of times you saw commercials like the Volvo commercials talking about safety, or the Michelin, there's a lot riding on your tires commercials. The idea with safety was a big selling point for some of the parts of cars, or some of the cars. It's very strange that they would not have figured out more quickly something that would give them maybe an advantage over other companies.
I'm sure they were forced.
Right.
They didn't do it.
Because it costs money to put that into a car. It increases the price of the car.
They were forced.
Yeah.
They were not like, this would be a great
Maybe
idea.
it reduces their profit if they have to put airbags in the car.
Right.
Because maybe they won't make money on that.
Airbags is a perfect example.
Right.
But because they were forced to do it, then they had to do it.
Right.
But
But if you're however, if you, on the other hand, if you are a company that makes suitcases, and you're the first person to put wheels on a suitcase, and you lift that thing up, and it's like then you have an automatic advantage. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, I want that suitcase. Yeah. And so if you're trying to compete against all the other companies at the time that didn't do that, maybe you got to jump on that and sell a huge amount of suitcases, or patent that technology actually, and then make money from all the companies that are going to want to use that.
I used to know that patents went for 12 years, but I've heard recently that goes for 20 years.
Mm-hmm. I think it breaks down into different types.
Categories.
Different categories. I think. I don't know. I'm not a patent lawyer, but I do think that there's some different categories. Just like in you have patents in the pharmaceutical industry that last for a certain period of time, exclusivity periods and things of that sort. But yeah, no, it's a great thing to be able to come up with something that's a really good patent, because sometimes maybe perhaps you don't even, maybe you wind up pitching companies and you sell your patent and they give you a piece of, maybe you work out an agreement where they give you part of the income stream. Who knows?
Do you know Dyson?
Yeah.
Do you know the story?
No.
Well, he came up with his prototype and went to all manufacturers, and guess what they said?
No.
No.
So he had to do it himself.
So he had to do it himself.
Interesting. Yeah. It's funny. You see, it's interesting. You saw the guys who created Waze. I think that was bought by Google, I think, for a lot of money. Yeah. But I don't know how long they had it out there before Google snapped it up and decided to purchase it. Like if they had already put all the work into it and it was just like a working product, and then they
then that's the other thing. Are you creating something just to sell it?
Right.
Or you're creating something to really make a difference?
Right. Like the Ring doorbell. I think the Ring doorbell, they didn't sell it. They decided they were going to do the whole thing.
Right.
I think it's probably being able to do something like that and then going on to another idea and doing the whole process again and figuring it out and analyzing it to death. And just like a scientific theory that you have to attack, you attack your ideas to see if they work. Well, are they going to be feasible and economical, and are they going to make a profit? It's a fun exercise. It's a fun thing to think about. That's part of the beauty of it, I think.
I think we have to look at history because I'm sure there must be multiple examples of people that did that.
Right.
So sometimes it's good,
Sometimes it's not.
sometimes it's not.
Right.
So you want to make sure that the sometimes not doesn't break you.
Right. I think that's right. And if you have I think some people are also, they have a talent of figuring out maybe what would work. Although I guess there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, there's a lot of variables I would imagine that you'd have to think about, and maybe it takes a little bit of. It obviously takes risk. You can't account for everything. I'm sure with the Ring doorbell, they weren't sure that it was going to work.
Right.
I'm sure they went to people and said, "Wow, I'd love to be able to have something like that."
Same with the thermostat.
Right, the smart thermostats. Or
Do you know the company called IDEO?
What is it?
IDEO, IDEO.
IDEO. Not sure. Sounds familiar. IDEO. Isn't there commercials for that, or like other? Maybe I'm thinking of something. I'm thinking of something else.
It's a company that develops products.
Okay.
And just to give you an idea, what type of team you need to come up with inventions. Their teams were absolutely diverse in the sense of, to develop a product, they would have a psychologist, they would have a doctor, they would have an engineer, they would have people that would think totally different in the team. And it's a wonderful example of how you create things. IDEO is the name of the company. They created a wonderful shopping cart. They went and looked at the store and looked what was important and how to make it cost effective. And they polish it, and everyone wanted a piece of it. Oh,
it's interesting. I always was thinking about that. Makes me think about the fact that, like, if you're in a supermarket, you're not familiar with the supermarket. You don't know where everything is. You should be able to just talk either to whether it's your phone or the cart, and just say,
have it in Europe.
Right, and then it just takes you to where you want to go.
No, you actually have a recipe, and the app will tell you which aisle to go.
Oh, that's great.
And get
right,
because the now the new thing is, like in Trader Joe's, that they're placing everything based on recipes. So if you find something, the other stuff is right next to it.
Right.
Based on recipes.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So yeah.
That's interesting.
But in Europe, it's like that. You instead of thinking what I'm gonna buy, what I'm gonna do, and you get the recipe, and they have the map of the store, and it tells you where to go. I mean, what is the order of things that you should go?
That's interesting. You think about this stuff all the time. When I was at LBI just this past week, you're dragging the sand cart full of stuff and everything, and I was thinking, imagine just having it like a rover where you just call it, and it just goes out by itself and just takes your stuff out, and then you get out there and it's automatically done for you. It's like there's so many different ways of doing things, probably more efficiently. Again, assuming the price points are good.
I haven't heard about Amazon and the store that is fully automatic, that you don't have to do anything. You just put things in your bag and you leave the store.
Oh,
I haven't heard much of it, but I don't think that was. I mean, good idea, but implementing it was a pain.
Right.
Because basically you are followed everywhere you go into the store, and cameras are looking on the things that you're putting in, but they have to account for anything you put out.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah. And there's no receipt. So we're not accustomed to that.
No.
We're not accustomed to, you get the receipt on the email, but normally my wife looks at the receipt and goes like, "Oh,
Oh,
things are expensive." So, but I haven't heard much of what's going on with that. So
I
yeah, so there are
yeah,
ideas that are great ideas, but the implementation, it's because as many things, new ideas doesn't mean that people will get it.
right, right. They might not find it to be convenient or not
Yeah.
interested for whatever reason.
Yeah, I
Doesn't
mean,
it's not enough for them to push them over the edge to say, "Oh my gosh, I got to get this thing."
so you have a range of very simple to very complex,
Right,
right? So you have to always go to the very simple as much as you can,
as much as you can.
as
Right.
much as you can, and really avoid the very complex.
Yeah, because if something's really complicated to use, people probably are not going to use it.
No.
So you defeated it. Like, sure, it's an interesting product. They can do lots of different things, but if it's complicated to use, you've just defeated yourself.
That's why
Yeah.
that's why they killed the cell phone.
Oh,
The the, the old
The
cell
old
phones, the flip
the flip phone.
and
Yeah,
and the one that you had to use like
BlackBerries.
the Blackberries and the 10 buttons to
Right.
do something.
Right.
That was totally killed by
Well, the worst thing
iPhone and
was
Samsung.
when you had to send a text
Yeah.
where you had 3 letters per thing. You had to look at the keys to figure out which. I mean, it was just like there's no way that would last in time. It was like the stupidest thing. But yeah, no. I mean, and in a way, I mean that's part of the beauty of the whole inventive process, because you're not just thinking about something, but you're thinking about how to get it to work and sell and get used and be really, useful. But you need to think through all the stuff, and it's the thinking through all that stuff, all those pieces, is part of the. If you can get that to work, that's great. I mean, that's part of the fun of it. That's really
Apple was
interesting.
able to do that because they had control on the software side and the hardware side. And
Right.
And they were
So they can
able,
integrate it.
they were able to do that.
Right.
Microsoft, how many innovations have they come from Microsoft?
Mm.
A lot less.
Yeah.
Because they're only this piece of the puzzle,
Right.
right? They have to agree with thousands and thousands of manufacturers to get the Windows button in.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
The Windows
Right.
button.
Uh-huh.
So you have to control all of that. So let's say doing electronics, and I work for a company that does a lot of that. It's very complicated. So, but if you come and say, "Oh, I want to create a new cup," all you need is the 3D printer.
Right. Speaking of new cups, someone showed me this cup that, one of the problems, again, problem solution, but one of the problems is you pour yourself a cup of coffee or something hot and it gets cold really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do now have, of course, the
double layer.
The double layers, or the mugs that actually are electrically heated.
Mm-hmm.
You can charge them and then they wind up heating your coffee. Now, right now, they're fairly expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the mug is at least $70, or I don't know what it is, but it's not like people are going to get a million of them to serve all over the place at restaurants. But the concept is interesting because it's, again, a problem. But the question is going to be whether the solution is workable. Is it something that someone's going to want to do? Like right now, I was always excited by the idea of years ago about having a climate-controlled suit, something tailored so that you could wear it under very cold conditions and still be comfortable, or you can design the suit so that it's maybe lightweight, easy, maybe it has a good power source. If it's designed effectively, then kind of makes it much more palatable to go outside when it's like in pretty cold temperatures. And so the suit can be designed, and they can even come up with more sophisticated things. Like if it's windy out, it can blow like certain air, or it can do certain things. You can design it more sophisticated. But if you design it well, and again, it's a decent price, maybe people would, like the idea of being all of a sudden, wow, I'm kind of comfortable outside. And also, when they go from outside to like a shopping mall or something like that, it automatically readjusts its climate controlled. That's kind of interesting.
You need a team for that.
Yeah, you need a team.
Do you know how many people design one jacket are Arcteryx, the,
Oh.
the brand.
Oh. No.
Arcteryx. 60 people.
Oh, wow.
60 people.
Yeah.
That's why they're so expensive.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of people working on each of the stuff that they do. But yeah, I mean, in general, anything that touches electricity and anything that touches electronics, you need a big team.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, if you can do it alone, I mean, my hat is to you, but yeah, I mean, we can come up with ideas, and my suggestion, and this is something that I do, is always write down whatever is that you're thinking. Write it down.
Yeah, it's almost like you need to have something at
Write
your
it
fingertips to be able to quickly jot down your. Otherwise, you will forget.
Or record
you
it,
can forget.
or send a text to yourself.
Yeah.
In
right.
WhatsApp, you can do that. You can, but always just record it because it happens to me. Days later, I'm like, what is it that
right,
the thing that I thought about, and I could not remember what it was.
Yeah, I mean, before you even had that kind of technology in terms of recording, if you were a music composer and you had some idea that came into your head, if you didn't write it down, and Beethoven had these notes that this book or whatever you would take with him, or I think he would just write down ideas, and you're right, you have to write those ideas down, otherwise you're probably going to forget them.
You will forget them, and it's very hard to just later say, what are all the things that I thought about?
Right.
And you will only remember when you're talking to somebody and you start remembering.
Right.
Right?
It'll prime you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you lean on your memory, it will certainly not work.
Right.
It happens to me and that's why whenever I had an idea, I write it down and I start working on it right away.
Mm-hmm.
Right away. I mean, I don't wait for tomorrow. I don't wait for that's.
And when you write it down, do you use your computer to do that, or do you do?
I use multiple things.
Oh, okay.
I use a lot of the recording because now the technology is really good.
You can convert what you're saying to words.
Yeah, you convert everything.
So now it's convenient to do that.
Dictate into your, and it's
right
90%.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You have to still correct some things, but that's how I wrote 13 books.
Huh.
It's because of that. Because every time I was waiting for my kids to swim or tennis,
you take advantage of your time.
I was just doing something while I waited for 2 hours.
And creativity can come up out of nowhere. It can come unpredictable. Your subconscious is working, and who knows when it'll spit something out, or you'll be thinking of a thought that comes, and then you're right. You should almost like grab onto it and put it down.
Yeah, you go like, oh, wait, like, give me 1 second.
Right.
Because you just need the key sentences to remember.
Right.
You don't need the whole thing, but you need the idea.
Yeah, it's almost exactly. You just need the kernel of you need the core of the idea. It's like, you can imagine, like, if you can think of it like 100 years ago or 50 years ago, whatever it was, where like your kid brings home like some creative drawing where it shows a suitcase on wheels with like a thing on it, and you're like, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea. And then you forget about it. You don't write it down. You're like, normally you'd be like, that's an interesting idea. I got to write that down, and I got to think about that. Because then you'd be like, if you didn't write it down, your kid's like, oh yeah, it was a kid drawing, and oh yeah, that was kind of nice. Yeah. Then you forget about it. It never comes up, maybe. Yeah. You don't think about it.
And you will forget. Yeah. Talking about the luggage, there's a guy that invented one piece. So it was very, very, very creative way, because basically this was on the ice skating rink,
Mm-hmm.
And he saw that the girls were always sitting on the floor. So he said, "Why don't we create a bag that it's a seat so they can sit on top of it?"
Oh.
So
When you say sitting on the floor, are you saying were they
they
sitting?
didn't have a way somewhere to sit, but the bag was always near to them.
Huh.
So this is a bag that is more square, and it's all metal, so you can sit on it.
Huh.
And totally successful.
Wow, that's interesting.
And all the girls that ice skate have that freaking bag.
It's funny because if you were not in that world of ice skating, you probably wouldn't think about it because you wouldn't have been presented with that problem.
And and the ideas doesn't come magically.
Right.
Like it just came to me. No, it's when you're looking at something, doing something, out of nowhere, you go like, oh, well, now it came to me. I mean, this can be better made, but it's always when you're doing something, being somewhere that
in the thick of it,
that you can think and you can see the people. Why the girls are all sitting on the floor? I mean, they don't need to sit on the floor. They just need to sit on their back.
Right. And this is an easy. There's an easy.
And the guy went to his garage and built one.
Huh.
With parts.
That's interesting.
And then they said, look, the 3D printer. That was his 3D printer, and it was very successful.
Huh.
Very successful.
And that was a product that's doesn't have electrical components to it. Just a physical thing that a 3D printer could put together without having to have the other layer of complexity.
Because once you have the little model, you can go anywhere and say, "Can you do it for me?"
Right.
Yeah. This in big size.
And they're like, right.
Everyone is
scale
like,
to scale.
At scale.
At scale, right.
But if you don't have something that people can touch,
they can't relate to it.
Right.
I see.
If you come with a bunch of blueprints, they will say, yeah, but seeing is believing.
Yeah, so could you so if you go back in time and if you wanted to do a 3D printer to make a suitcase with wheels with the metal thing inside it to be goes in and out like we normally see in a suitcase, I guess you can design that, correct? I've
thought about a lot about that because the problem I see with the suitcases with the handle is that it takes a lot of space inside.
Right.
And you have to pack.
It's like retractable. It's retracting in.
Yeah, retracting.
You have to build in that
right
that whole area to do that. Right.
So the only way I can think of is to put the levers on the side of the luggage instead of the middle.
The middle.
Put it on the side.
Right.
Right. So that you have the whole space inside for you.
Ah, right. Right. So you're saying. The question, I guess, is it going to be balanced, and is it going to be? Will it have the same level?
Well, this is a luggage. The things go in, right? Why don't you put them in the frame?
Right.
Of the baggage. In the frame.
The frame itself, yeah.
So that you clear.
Save room for the.
You clear all room inside the bag.
Right.
And the same thing, it can go up and down.
Right.
Right.
Trying to improve the design of it so that you can get more space for the.
I want the space to be total.
Right. You don't want to compromise on the space.
I don't want to compromise on the space.
Right. Right.
Because you lose a lot of space with the things in the middle.
Right. Right.
I don't know about materials. Then we have to have an expert on materials.
Mm-hmm.
Because so basically, how do you do it? I mean, basically, I just want. So basically, it will be like that, and you just
pull it out.
pull it out,
each side.
and it's just wider,
Right.
right? And but that's it. I mean,
Mhm.
and then you have, you know, the space problem in the airlines.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, they're making the personal luggage smaller and smaller.
Well, that reminds me of the idea that it was ingenious that you could put other wheels that can allow you to turn it in this way, where it takes up less width,
Right.
and you can wheel it that way, and you can design it so that not only can it go this way, but it can also be turned, and the wheels can go that. That was ingenious,
Right.
because then it's like, okay, so you're going to be faced with situations like getting in the airplane, having to have a narrower space to drag this suitcase, and so we got to figure out a way to design it so that we can turn it or get it through using it with the less width side, and that's great. So that's awesome. That kind of innovation is just really interesting.
I think that's the only problem, because they're requiring you to have a smaller and a smaller bag,
Right.
when people, what they need is more and more space.
Right. So what do you do to try to shave? It's kind of like trying to maximize the best you can the space that you have.
Some?
Yeah, let's try one. Thank you. Try to maximize when you really need to maximize. I'm good. Thank you. Yeah. It's a fun problem to think about. I don't know why, it's making me think of a little bit for a second of the Apollo 13 movie, where Ron Howard directed that, and there's a problem that they have either with something. There's some system failure. I don't know what it was, but what they did in the movie was they had to figure out this problem, and they were under a lot of time pressure at NASA to figure this problem out because these astronauts could have died. And then what they did was they got all these guys together and they dumped onto a table like all the pieces that they had available to work with in the ship, and said, "Do something with this. This is what they have to work with. Let's figure out a way to get them to survive." And they did.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the neatest thing because all of a sudden, this is what you have. This is your universe stuff that we have to work with, and we got to create something with this stuff. And they did. I thought that was a neat scene.
Did you hear about Boeing and the Starliner?
Starliner, much.
The one on the international.
Oh yeah, what's going on with that? Yeah, it's like all kinds of What's going on with that?
Well, the problem with that is that I've read that the thrusters doesn't work. So they're not sure that once they detach, the ship is going to go what they want to go.
Oh, wow.
So they have three options. One is, get in and then try to maneuver. Number two is send the capsule alone. And number three is send the SpaceX Dragon to pick them up.
Oh, and what are they going to do?
I don't know. It's very political.
Oh,
It's very political because, Boeing is going to look bad no matter what.
Boeing there've been all kinds of problems with Boeing. I thought that the storyline behind that was that McDonnell Douglas, when it took over Boeing, when it combined or whatever it was, these are good by the way. They were more interested in turning a profit than they were in safety features, and that change of management, change of thinking, has now come back to really bite them. It's that's interesting. Space is such a complicated area. So many different things can go wrong. It's
complicated because the people involved make it complicated.
Right.
But it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Did you see the videos that I sent you?
I saw some of them. Yeah, I did watch the more recent one. Yeah,
Did you
one
see
recent one.
The counter circling Mercury?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Interesting. Well, obviously, the argument would be that simpler designs have less chance of breakdown, and you build complicated systems. There's a lot of things that can go wrong.
I think the rabbit is out of the bag. So it's already known how it works, right? you either there are two technologies. So there's mercury, counter circling mercury with different currents, and there's element 115. So basically, element 115 is put in a atom collider, like mini, and that creates anti-gravity. When they bombard 115, it creates this field
right
around.
mm-hmm.
So in one of the videos was interesting because they explain how do you maneuver. So on one side you have a lever that gives more or less energy, and the other one moves the ship left and right and whatever.
So you have to design the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I would think that I've always thought that the idea of the way planes take off or the way that all will be looked at as just like almost like laughable as to how that happens. It's like it really should be almost effortless. I mean, think about just something that just can go up like this and then out, kind of like what a helicopter does.
Mm-hmm.
When I took the helicopter ride, we were in Hawaii and took the helicopter ride, I was amazed, just effortless, just goes up and then just out. But they should really be able to design larger, flying machines.
Now they are with the electric. Now they're coming up with. They just came up with some new helicopter that is not a helicopter because it's like 8 engines.
Oh.
But it's and they're more stable. They're faster. It's just better. The only thing that we need is better batteries.
Right.
So that they last longer, charge in no time. If you can do that.
Yeah, it's funny. Whatever happened to someone I talked to a number of years ago, was very excited with the idea of ultracapacitors being used in addition to the batteries, like using ultracapacitor technology to find ways to create charging, increase the speed of charging.
Because the charge is instant.
Yeah, but I haven't really kept up with that area as to what.
There must be issues with that.
Right.
But many teams are racing to get better batteries.
Right.
L, this gigantic company producing batteries.
Oh, is that in
China?
China, of course. China. Yeah.
And there are other companies that they have produced better, more dense. And the charge is like 10 minutes.
Wow, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And we're talking about not 300, not 400, but 600-700 miles per charge.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I would imagine too that I would think that China is also probably going to be putting all that infrastructure in place.
It's
already there. Yeah, they move very fast.
They just reported, and they are selling more EVs and hybrids than gas cars.
Yeah, and the prices are so much reduced compared to us. It's we're not. I guess we're putting like massive tariff. We're not even like we don't want them. We couldn't compete with that. So yeah, that's kind of that's interesting. It's interesting. China decides to make up its mind to do something. It does it.
Did you see the index of McDonald's?
The what?
The McDonald's index?
No.
How much they charge in the U.S. compared to other countries?
Oh, I've heard that it's like, yeah, it's a huge difference.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah, so the world's going to get faster, going to get more up to speed outside the United States probably as a result of that. They're just going to move so quickly, their technology, that it's, they're a force to be reckoned with. There's no question about it. They have the ability to, just to control things much better. Oh boy, did that go off? Yeah.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
close out. So I hope, 50 minutes. Perfect.
Oh, good.
Okay, so thank you, everyone, and see you on the next one.
Sounds
Bye-bye.
good.